that consistency. And we notice when actors are consistent. We notice those are the auditions we want to listen to. The people who are inconsistent or kind of all over the place in their auditions, we never know what to expect when we hit play on that audition file. So there's that consistency, and we notice that. We start to look for those auditions. We start to, we get excited to hear those from those people.
You're listening to the VoiceOver Casting Corner podcast. VCC is brought to you by The VoiceCaster, the country's first and oldest voiceover casting house established in 1975. The VoiceCaster casts thousands of voices every year across all genres, and we're excited to give you an inside look at the casting process direct from our casting team.
Hey everyone, and welcome to VoiceOver Casting Corner. My name is Kelly Mushinsky, and I am the owner and head of casting at The VoiceCaster.
And I'm Kathryn Horan. I'm the senior casting director here at The VoiceCaster.
So today we are going to talk about green flags. So often, I think we've even done an episode on red flags, but it's one of those things where we don't talk enough about the green flags. What stands out in a good way, whether it is your auditions, whether it's social media, how you present yourself in an email, things like that. Let's dive into some of the things that stand out. So I know for me, one of the first things is professionalism. It is one of those things where you are an individual, but your voiceover career is a business. So there is a certain level of professionalism and professionalism across the board, every single email, every interaction. That's not to say that you can't be a person and have those, human interactions, but there are certain things that stand out more positively than others.
Exactly. Yeah. And sometimes it's just, basic common sense, like, making sure you're meeting deadlines, you're not submitting your auditions late. Make sure you're on time when you've got a session, don't show up late. Little things like that seem like common sense, but yet sometimes it gets, people aren't staying on top of it. And that definitely can leave a bad impression. So if you're doing those things, if you're submitting on time, you're showing up on time for sessions, you're responsive when, we're emailing you about bookings, we don't have to hunt you down to get an answer out of you when we're checking in avail, that kind of stuff. Being responsive, being available, all of that is going to stand out to us.
Mm-hmm. None of that goes unnoticed. It's something that me and Kathryn and Ben talk about all the time. It's like we notice the professionalism. We notice the green flags just as much as the red flags. We notice the people who are showing up professionally, and it's there's a lot of factors to that, but there's also the personal side. I feel like something that has come up more recently has been even just people wanting to have personality and people wanting to connect with people. And it's like, that's fantastic, connect with people, whether it's in a session or coaching or whatever. But there is such a thing as TMI. There is such a thing as, turning us all into therapists and things like that are, on the red flag side. So keeping that certain level of professionalism and, just knowing where that line is.
Yeah, for sure. I get sometimes it's stressful and you just want to unload and, we're friendly and, you like us. And so, yeah, I get it. But yeah, sometimes.
And we understand, it's like we understand. So of course, but yeah, sometimes we're like, whoo, that was a therapy session when it should have just been a voiceover session.
Right? Exactly.
So yeah, the next one I would say is performance. I mean, that's probably the most obvious one. But there's a lot of green flags in performance. I think one of the biggest things for me is consistency. I was just talking about this the other day with one of my classes. We were talking about that consistency, and we notice when actors are consistent. We notice those are the auditions we want to listen to. The people who are inconsistent or kind of all over the place in their auditions, we never know what to expect when we hit play on that audition file. So there's that consistency, and we notice that. We start to look for those auditions. We start to, we get excited to hear those from
So
those.
yeah, you want to be the person when we're looking through to see who submitted on a project. We get excited. Oh yay, they submitted! I can't
Yep.
wait. I know they're going to have the read I'm looking for. You want to be
Yep.
that person, and that's consistency in terms of making sure you match what the spec is asking for. You're being
Mhm.
authentic. You're not pushing or doing weird stuff. You're trying to be different just for the sake of being different. You're reliable. We know that you're going to understand the script and what they're going for, and you're going to deliver what the client is going to want
Mhm.
to hear.
Yep, exactly. And it's not trying to be what you think the client wants. It's looking at the specs and interpreting those how they are naturally to you, and it's like I mean, I'm sure you feel the same way, Catherine, but like there are times when I go to click on an audition and I'm like, ooh, I wonder what's going to happen today. Because some people are so inconsistent. It's like they could have an amazing read on something, or it could be a bit of a train wreck. So, yeah. Yeah. And it goes for, making there's a lot to be said for that consistency. I think it's they understand the script, they are interpreting the script, they are making it their own, they are making choices, they are showing, range and variations between the takes, and these are things that are all consistent across every single audition.
It's having a good handle on what the medium is, whether it's
Mhm.
commercials or animation, video games. You understand what what people are looking for, and you know how to interpret that, and you know how to glean certain cues from the script, and so a lot of that comes with practice, some innate talent, but just being aware of that kind of stuff. Don't, just like I said, don't try to be weird just to be weird or to stand out. Really internalize it and bring your authentic self to it. That's going to help you book the job and be impressive.
Yep, absolutely. And, a third green flag for me tends to be collaboration. I feel like this is something that we've talked about a million times, Catherine, where it's just we are a piece of the puzzle. Casting directors, we can't do our job without actors. We want to work with you. We work with producers. We work with creative teams of all sorts. And, it's the collaborative process. So anytime there is somebody, auditioning for us or we're working within a session and we see that they want this to also be a collaboration, it's not just about them sounding perfect for the spot and, all of that, um, that makes a huge difference for
Mhm.
us.
Yeah, definitely. And talking about collaboration, we want people that are easy to work with. You want people that when they're in a session are going to listen to what the client wants and give them that. If the client asks for suggestions, they've got things that they can bring up and try. Not ones that are, making it all about them, or I feel like it should sound like this, because the client has something in mind. It may not be what you, the actor, think it should be, but you've got to honor what they're wanting. It's their project. So being someone who can go with that flow and be a contributor and help, give and take, and be part of that process.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely. And honestly, the more you have a collaboration, the more fun it is.
Mhm.
I just find it so much more fun to play, as a director, like working with an actor, bouncing all of those ideas off of each other. It's like I'll say one thing, the actor does something, that gives me another idea, that gives them an idea. It's like
And the
it's
client will
way more
remember that,
enjoyable.
and they'll remember how much fun that was, how much they got out of it, and they'll want to book you again. When
Yeah.
another project comes up, they may request that you read on it, or maybe they'll automatically just go with you because they're like, oh, we really liked this person on this project, we think they'd be great on this one as well, let's book them. So you want to make that impression.
Yep, absolutely. That's how you get ongoing clients.
Mhm.
If you want the recurring work,
Yeah.
That's where it comes
Gotta
from.
be a team player.
That's exactly where it comes from. Uh, so I think another thing that I want to touch on, just in terms of green flags, is mindset. And there's sort of two factors to this. So there's having the business mindset, knowing that you as a voice actor are your own business, so treating your career like a business, having that professionalism, understanding the ins and outs of the business, everything from rates to usage to industry standards, knowing the difference between union and non-union, that kind of thing, really makes a big difference. And again, it's like, yes, we are listening to your auditions, but we are also getting to know talent on other levels, and we have to, I mean, that's part of our job as casting directors, right? That's, yeah.
Yeah. And then kind of along with that too is technical readiness, making sure that you are ready when that job comes, that you're ready to take it. And maybe that is having some kind of home studio equipped with Source Connect, or, being able to do Zoom, or just, having a basic setup that is going to be quality, broadcast quality, or quality that'll be what they need for whatever the project might be. A lot of this stuff, they do want you to have a home studio or have a studio that you can use. Um, so being able to accommodate that should the client want it.
Mhm.
You're not always going to be guaranteed a studio to be provided for you depending on what the project is. So
Yeah.
making sure you can meet the needs of what the client has.
Yeah. And reliability is a big thing. So whether that is your home studio or whether that is you book an outside studio, that's a huge part of it. And then, going along with what Kathryn was saying too is, being able to be your own engineer. That is a big part of that technical readiness. Unfortunately, we are in a day and age where so many sessions are happening from home studios. You have to be your own engineer. You have to know your equipment and everything enough to adjust settings as they ask you to in the session, to be able to troubleshoot any issues that your setup is having. I see this stuff happen in classes and workouts and things like that all the time. And seen a lot of people get really flustered and frustrated that something isn't working right, or this was working earlier and now it's not. It's like, again, it goes back to that professionalism where it's like, okay, just give me 1 second. Let me, figure out what's
And
going
things
on.
happen. Like we have this happen even with our studio and studios we connect with. Things happen.
Yeah.
The internet is unreliable, or, just equipment doesn't work. And, things happen, and the client will, hopefully, they should understand.
Mhm.
So just
Yeah.
be honest. And like, keep your calm, keep your cool. Say, all right, I'm gonna, maybe try restarting the system. I'm gonna do this or that, the other thing. And if things
Mhm.
don't work, you can usually find some kind of workaround. So it's not usually the be all end all, but keeping that cool, keeping that professionalism throughout, keeping the client or the connecting studio in the loop of what's going on and what's happening, and then
Yeah.
see if there's some other way you can make the session work.
Yeah.
Because usually there are workarounds. If it's supposed to be a Source Connect session, it can transform into a Zoom kind of phone. The client can still give direction. You're, recording on your end now instead of the studio. But, there's things you can do to make it work. But I think just, keeping that professionalism throughout, the client will appreciate that a lot more than if you're just
Mm.
frantic and you make it sound like you don't know what you're doing.
Yeah, and being prepared for those different situations, like Kathryn said, switching over from Source Connect to Zoom, it's like, okay, can you hop on a Zoom call and be ready to record on your end if
Mhm.
you have to? Yeah, absolutely. And you should, always recording a backup because the internet is unreliable. And it is always when it's the perfect take that everyone loved that there was some sort of glitch
That's
on
that
the other on
that.
the other end, and they're like, "Oh, do you have a backup?" And we're like, "Yeah, we got a
Mhm.
backup," And then you I mean, that looks so good for you, and it's helping the client. I mean, again, it's the professionalism, it's the consistency, and it goes back to that collaboration and just making sure that things are there, but making sure that you are ready for anything technically. Not necessarily, you don't have to be ready to read to picture. Not every studio is set up for that, but at least, be ready to be recording a backup, be ready to, do it phone patch style where you record as you're getting direction over the phone or Zoom. Be ready to do some playback. If the client needs to hear something,
Or
be
give
ready
them
to
a
play a
copy of
take back
something.
so that they can hear it. So yeah, being ready, and technically you don't even have to be like tech savvy. It's really just knowing the very basics of your own system. And part of it is also just the confidence, staying confident that you can fix whatever happens, because all kinds of stuff happen. And, like anything can happen. And it
Right.
happens to us too.
Exactly.
Like, know that every single studio has issues from time to time, and it's totally normal.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. So I think we will leave you with what I would say is the biggest green flag of all. And that is when producers or casting, anybody who's on the hiring side says that they want to work with you again. Whatever made that happen, whether it was your professionalism, your collaboration, your mindset, your technical side, any of that, or a combination of all of the above, when they say that they want to work with you again and can't wait to work with you, and even if this job wasn't quite right, we're going to book another one together, things like that, that is the sign that you are doing things right,
Mhm.
and to keep going in that direction. So if there was anything that we mentioned today where you're like, oh, I don't know if I'm doing that, revisit it, just look at it and make sure, that you're putting your best foot forward. So thinking about the green flags even more so than the red flags.
Exactly. And I think as an actor too, making that maybe your goal instead of delivering the perfect read or, whatever
Mhm.
it might be to be, I want to be the one they want to work with again.
Yes. Yes. And guess what? That is in your control.
Hmm.
So booking the job is not in your control, but you can control how professional you are. You can control how ready you are technically. You can control your consistency.
Hmm.
So control what you can control. All right. Well, thank you for joining us for this episode of Voiceover Casting Corner. We will see you next time.
Catch a new VoiceOver Casting Corner episode every second and fourth Tuesday of the month. Be sure to give a thumbs up, subscribe, and follow us at The Voicecaster on social media. Thanks for listening.